Hello and welcome to Two Guys on Two Coasts. He's Clint Hurdle. He's on the Florida Gulf Coast, the tropics. And I'm Phil Van Horn. It's 70 and sunny Southern California. Welcome to our podcast. Clint, we got a lot to talk about. There's
We
plenty going
do.
on.
You think? Do you
Uh,
think we're going to fit it all in?
so when did you get back from the winter meetings?
I returned to my home Thursday late morning. Thursday late morning. Put in a full Sunday through Wednesday night. So it was a full 4 days.
Yeah. How many times you been there now?
Winter meetings. Oh my, probably. I think you're required to go as a manager unless there's some extenuating circumstances to get you out. So there would have been 17 of those. I've gone the last three winters with Colorado. No, last two winters with Colorado. I'm about number 20. It might have been my 20th anniversary.
So not much really happened at it, but boy, when it was over, Shohei announced and his representatives announced that they had selected a team and a deal. What was your first impression when you heard that he 700 million with the Dodgers?
Wow. My first impression was wow. I like to think that there's not much that can surprise me in the game of baseball anymore, but that got kicked to the curb a long time ago because I
Yeah.
think as long as you're in the game of baseball, things are going to happen that surprise you. Funny enough, maybe a week, 10 days ago, I'm listening to my buddy Sean Casey,
Yeah.
and he threw out a number, 700 million. I went, whatever. And of course, he let everybody know that he nailed it. Yeah. And I can't even say it was higher than I anticipated. I didn't know where they're going to land this thing.
Yeah.
I've heard all the comparisons since then. It's a vintage Pedro Martinez and a vintage this. And the one aspect that nobody else has ever had before, from my perspective, is the global marketing opportunity that this guy has and brings with him. I've read a couple articles how the 700 million will all be taken care of 2 years from now. Well, let's see if that math all works out. But there's people that are out there on both sides of the fence on this thing that it's crazy. It just the math ain't mathing. I'm hearing that a lot. The math's not mathing. And then I'm hearing like, oh, it makes all the sense in the world because of A, B, C, and D. Um, how many how many jerseys are going to be sold before Christmas? Number 17 jerseys. What kind of gift? Is it Joe Kelly? What kind of gift is the player that's wearing 17 going to get from Shohei? That's what I want to know. That's going to be large. And then the fact that I read something the other day, maybe this morning, that Derek Jeter's jersey was the second highest selling jersey in 2023.
Really?
Derek Jeter retired a few years ago. And his jersey was the second highest. So, what is Shohei's jersey? The sales that are going to take place over the period of the contract, everything else out there. It's crazy. It's just a lot, man. It's like drinking from a fire hose, but I'm just going to sit back and enjoy the ride.
Were you surprised at all it was the Dodgers?
No, but again, it wouldn't have surprised me if somebody would have come in. It seems like those things are happening a little bit more frequently now within our game. Actually, some people are able to keep the wraps on some things. And also, I read a lot. And I will say this, I read one of the columnists that I follow said 95% of the time that news is leaked, it's leaked from the agents. And I would have no trouble digesting that as truth. In all mine, I haven't negotiated with agents, but I've been with the general manager while he's negotiating with an agent. And there's three of us that know what's going on. And maybe the information got out. And I know it wasn't my general manager because he's not allowed to. And I wouldn't know it wasn't me because I was sitting next to him. So you don't know where it comes. But I think more often than not, that is the leak that can happen. And who knows? If you have a small circle, you better keep it small.
Yeah.
Because you even tell your aunt or your uncle or it's your sister, and who knows who she knows, and just. So I would not have been surprised if somebody would have come out of a different geographic location and grabbed him. I did find a lot of folly in the tracking of the airplane.
Yeah.
And I hear that guy's still available to be signed as a free agent. I think he's still out on the market. So if you want to go get Robert, I'm sure he'd jump on board if you can cut through the tape of his, what is it, Shark Tank contract.
Yeah. Yeah.
But did a lot. I mean, and it was somewhat comical. I got a few people. I saw Morosi's apology. Bless his heart.
Yeah.
I know a girl that runs a Denver podcast, Susie Hunter. She got out there real quick and she understood the lesson that can be learned and all that. And, you know, we're going to say something that everybody else has said, but for many years now, it's been, you don't have to be right. You just have to be first.
Yeah.
And I do think this exposed a lot of cracks in our ability to communicate, and not just, you know, the media, but for this one, the media had to wear it. I like the fact that integrity still matters, and I do love the fact that Shohei and his agent said they were going to run this thing the whole way their way. They did. So well done.
Well, Shohei's still not 30 years old. He's 29. And the thing you referenced about, I think it was Jason Stark of the Athletic, said that he's comparable to Pedro Martinez and Mickey Mantle at age 29, which is pretty impressive. Now, I'm out here, so I've been watching him with the Angels since he showed up. And I can remember when he one off-season went to Driveline to work on a swing and came back not a little bit better, but a lot better. And I know some of the Driveline guys pretty well, and one of them that had to sign a non-disclosure so he could work with them that winter. I wouldn't be surprised if the Dodgers help him get even better. I really wouldn't, with offensively. Now, got to figure out the arm thing, right? I mean,
Oh, I think they will. I mean, he won't be the first guy to have, you know, had multiple as number 2 Tommy John surgeries and come back and to be able to pitch and pitch effectively. I mean, then they'll just probably have to choose which lane they want to live in. Do they want to start him every 5 days to maximize the bat? Do they want to put him in the back end of the bullpen and use him maybe as an opener or as a closer, where you can use him 2 times a week, 3 maybe? And, you know, they'll figure all that out, I'm sure. I do like the fact that you were out there, you've heard it. I mean, he's another guy that came from the Pacific Rim. First year in, I mean, I read stuff. I didn't know him. I hadn't seen him, and he was getting toasted. I can remember watching Ichiro the first spring training that he came to the desert. And watching him, I went out specifically to watch his BP and watch all of it because I was just, oh, man, I got to see this. And it was not of the quality that it sure turned out to be. It was a lot less than early, as Shohei's was, but it just goes to show. My goodness, can we imagine what they go through to come over for the first time? They get out of their natural surroundings, their comfort zone in 12 different places, and then jump in over here under the scrutiny, the media coverage, everything else. And if they don't get off to a quick start or a good start or a fantastic start, you know, they get barbecued. And I think Shohei just showed the ability to work through the first injury. The Angels took care of him. Obviously, it was a good relationship of ours, facilitating his ability to train and get ready and perform. And I'm sure that will all be relayed, the information to the Dodgers, and we'll see where it goes. But I just love the fact that also this guy's funny. He has a sense of humor. I've pulled up a few things since then. And, you know, I love how Freddie Freeman and Mookie were talking when they were Mike during the All-Star game, talking about how this guy just continues to get better, you know, in regards to your comment. He just continues to get better. Well, how about that threesome? And I think it was my buddy Anthony said great things come in threes, 3 Musketeers, you know, all the different threes, and then now the 3 Dodgers. Oh my gosh. And we'll see how it plays out. You know, the best players don't always play on the best teams. And it's your 9. It's your best 9, not your 9 best. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a crazy dynamic that, like I said, I'm going to just sit back and enjoy the ride.
When will you head to spring training?
In the past, I've gone around the beginning of March and stayed a couple weeks. I need to be back a week before the big fundraiser we throw for my daughter's hot stove fundraiser. We throw to support Prader-Willi syndrome, the birth defect Maddie was born with.
Yeah.
I am like the guy now. Carlos stepped out of the way and turned it over to me since I stopped managing on something that I need to learn how to do. This year, maybe a few more days, maybe one more week. I'll go earlier. However, it's not like it used to be, and that's okay. Right now, we're in the middle of the Christmas holiday season for our family. We've reached out to a lot of friends. We will be headed to New York City later this week. We have a annual Hurdle Christmas vacation in New York City. We've gone to 14 out of the last 15 years. The only year we missed was COVID. And we see the Rockettes, and we go to Rockefeller Center, and we take our picture in front of the tree. Nobody skates, but we want to, but nobody does. And we go to Legoland, and we visit the real Santa at Macy's, and now then the real Santa will show up at the Rockettes, which we go watch. Dinner a few places, and the window dressings and shopping and the light shows at Saks and Neiman Marcus. We love it. And we go every year and spend 4 years. It's the official ringing of Christmas for us. We have one of the two trees in our house up right now. We still have the 15-foot tree to put up. All the other decorations are out. We love Christmas. Elf is not on the shelf. Elf is in a glass cupboard, in a glass. He hid from Maddie today. Maddie had trouble finding him, but she did find him. So he's making his rounds now. It's been a while. One of the beautiful things about having Maddie and her rationale, Christmas is real. Easter Bunny's real. Tooth Fairy's real. When we watch the Santa Claus movies 1, 2, and 3, and all these guys show up, the Sandman, Mother Nature, it's all real, and it all plays at our house, and it makes it magical. And I'll be the guy that they'll yell at inside Radio City Music Hall because they tell you phones down, no pictures, and I'll try and sneak one somewhere somehow.
Yeah.
Get shamed.
The beauty of that trip is then that you get a return to that wonderful tropical weather after. It's not only are we warm weather guys now, both of us are Midwestern natives. You were a Michigan guy, is that right?
Born in Big Rapids, Michigan, just a short drive up from Grand Rapids, 60 miles, home of Ferris State College. Still have a bunch of family back there. Returned to my roots most of the summers throughout my elementary grade, junior high and high school days. Born and bred a Detroit Lion, Detroit Piston, Detroit Red Wing, and Detroit Tiger fan. Old English D, still to this day. That's my team. I was able to look my lovely bride Carla in the eye a couple of weeks ago on an anniversary date we had. We were up at Ponte Vedra. And I said, honey, I've never said this before. The Detroit Lions are a good football team this year. It took me 60 years to spit that out of my mouth.
Well, you could say that when Barry Sanders was there, but it wasn't really true. But yeah, I mean, they lost and they're still good. They lost this past weekend. They're still good.
They're 9-4. We're going to be okay. We need golf to step it up. NFL, I'm a fan. And I'm that guy that instead of getting angry, I usually just turn it off or I walk away or we go do something else. So
yeah,
I'm well aware of the fact that if you're a head coach or a manager, that most people in your sphere of influence can do your job better than you. So there's no sense in getting caught up in that. And the smartest people that I've ever come across either drive a cab, used to, now it's an Uber, barbershop, bartenders back in the day that I used to drink. I mean, they were brilliant. That's where you got all your good information.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that back seat is a great place to drive from.
Amen.
So I'm an Indianapolis guy, and I'm like all things state of Indiana basketball, right? So I went to Ball State University, David Letterman School, home of the C student. And given what's happened with our Eastern Ivy League schools lately, I think Ball State had it right. Because what I saw with 3 university presidents of the high price thing. What's
that thing that my wife, people used to help me with every once in a while? You know, I talk to the media twice a day for 17 years.
Yeah.
You have a pre-game meeting, you have the post-game meeting. And there were some times after I had said something, I knew that that's not what I really wanted to say. In my sport, though, usually by the end of the night, I get back there, I go, hey, remember this afternoon, what I meant to say was, but once those words are out, there's no putting the genie back in the bottle, and we need to be held accountable, and we need to be held responsible for what we say. Because I think, biblically, the words come from where? They come from our heart.
Yeah.
There's something inside of us that stirs it up and shares it. And I just know that for me personally, the closer I can stay to God's word and committed to what I'm reading and what I'm doing, the better my speech is going to be, the better my dialogue is going to be, the better my thought process is going to be. And it just gives me an ease and a comfort in which to live, where I'm not trying to say what I need to say before I need to say it 3 or 4 times and then spit it out. It gets too mechanical. I'm usually able to speak from my heart.
Clint, I'm going to check the clock. We're 20 minutes in of our first podcast, and we've already touched on kind of what we're about. Faith, family. We've both been involved in the baseball industry for a long time, and leadership and men. That's us. I want to talk about Wall Street Journal had a story recently. Boys are struggling. This is not new. I wrote a book about ministering to men, and I minister to men. Clint, beginning January 1, I start a new job. I am a missionary to men. Officially, that is my job. So I'm a missionary. That's new. I have a lot to learn. But being around guys is second nature. Whenever I'm around a table of guys, black, white, brown, yellow, rich man, poor man, old, young, it could be 85, could be 15. That's when I know that God has me at the right spot. But to say boys are struggling, that's been a thing for a while. And that's because the educational system is geared, and has been for the past 25 years, quarter century, is geared for attending to girls. We take away recess at an early age. And part of the story is the old ADD, ADHD. Now, Clint, both of us have had our day and with great success, and we've also been, held up in public to ridicule. We've made our big mistakes. But as kids, were you a short attention span, had to be busy guy? I was.
Yeah, you know what? I seem to be able to have a switch I could flip. And I didn't know I had a switch I could flip. I knew when I was outside, it was time to play. When I was inside, it was time to study. My mother was very, very diligent about the importance of books, importance of learning, importance of school, importance of homework. My dad was so gifted in all sports. And once we get outside, the gloves were off and we were playing or making games up, whether it was football, basketball, baseball. I can remember, and I've shared this multiple times, my life trajectory changed dramatically at the age of 5 when my dad looked down at me in the eye and said, "Hey, son, you want to go out back and play catch?" It's 61 years later, and I'm still going outside and playing catch. But inside, school was important. My mother stressed the importance because she said, you want to have opportunities and you want to create options for yourself as you graduate from high school. There may be schools that want you to play football or baseball. However, if you don't have grades, you're going to limit the net you can throw there. And I was fortunate that I worked hard at school. I did my homework. I got good grades. I graduated with 1B, driver's ed, story for another time. Lamest story ever. True, though. 1B. And one of the biggest things that, people say football, baseball, because I had both. And I had some schools, a handful of schools that would have let me play both back in the day when they actually encouraged you to play both. Not many, but about 3. Yeah. Miami was one. University of Virginia was another. And then truthfully, I had an academic scholarship to Harvard. And as I went around back in the day, I think you could take 5 visits. I took 15.
Oh, wow.
I think we were breaking rules back then. And at every one, a football coach or a baseball coach would say, "Hey, look, if things get hard and the school work gets tough, let us know. We'll get you a tutor after practice or before practice, but the practice will keep you engaged, but we'll get you help for your work. Okay. I go to Harvard and we'll sit down by the chancellor and said, when the school work gets hard, we'll let your coach know you'll not be at practice because we'll be studying, because there is no one here for athletics as their number one goal at Harvard. You are here to, to create a life and a future for yourself through our educational system. And that forever, it was like a brand that was put on me. And I still carried it. And I was very proud of the fact, internally proud of the fact that I was offered an academic scholarship to Harvard University. And we don't have do-overs. There's no mulligans. That one intrigued me more than the football, playing college football ever did.
Huh. Life changes. I look at that story from the Wall Street Journal. One, it's not a surprise. Guys are not and there's the saying that our educational system treats boys as dysfunctional girls, right? Or girls who are not polite and quiet. And when we took away recess, probably a mistake. Guys need to bounce around. Because we tell guys at an early age, it's okay to bounce around. And then we send them to school and say, it's not okay to bounce around anymore. Go climb a tree. Nah, don't climb a tree. All of that it's odd. And then in the educational system, the boys are not rewarded for that. One thing about the educational system, and why boys are struggling today, it clearly, life is not one size fits all, right? You and I are like example A and example 1A of there is no one size fits all in life. You can stumble, get back up. It's biblical and it's practical. You can be an early bloomer, late bloomer, doesn't matter. Life presents us with, and we follow Jesus. God presents us with multiple second opportunities in life. Amen, my brother. Amen.
Amen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Our educational system is not quite the same for boys in presenting opportunities. Boys misbehave, they're in deep trouble, or they're labeled as, hey, get that guy to the doctor. He needs medication to settle him down. I could not imagine. I'm gonna guess it. I was at Edgewood Elementary, and I mean, recess was a big deal. It was very organized, and everybody did something. No one did nothing, and the teachers were out. And in middle school too, the teachers were out with us doing stuff. It was very organized. And I couldn't imagine taking that away. I would have just imploded. Uh, and I bring that up because I think the educational system today, there's such an emphasis on here's what accomplished girl students do. Let's do that. As opposed to saying we have to make allowances for what guys are normal at or what are norms for guys. And I think that's been a real challenge for the educational system to transition. And I think in some regards, boys are in trouble. Now, I'm a dad of a son. You're a dad of a son. What do you think about that?
Well, I agree. And the challenge we have is we all know one size doesn't fit all. However, in school, one size fits all.
Yeah.
And the fact we've gone out of our way to make sure Jesus is not in the school and you can't talk about God. And then we wonder how the schools get broken or they're flawed or they're misrepresented or things are, way hard. It doesn't surprise me. My son just graduated last year. We ran through a lot of different obstacles throughout. Plus we moved a couple of times. We started in Pennsylvania, his elementary school, and during the year we would take him out of school and then put him in school in Florida for spring training for 3 or 4 months out of the year. So that was another challenge that we created. However, to see the difference in the school systems from Florida to Pennsylvania was eye-opening. Pennsylvania has always been highly regarded as a good school system, and in some ways they were. In some areas, they were probably less than in Florida. Florida was less than probably in more areas than Pennsylvania, but they had a couple they got right. Not getting outside, not only was it for boys, but even for girls, I think the opportunity to get out, to take a break, to breathe, to run, to play is important. I can't imagine back when I was young, if we wouldn't got out for, I mean, it was a celebration. PE was a celebration. The president honored PE back in the day. We had the President's Physical Fitness Award that you'd go through, the testing, and it would be done. And you always knew who your PE teachers were in school because they dressed differently. It wasn't just a whistle around their neck. They were ready to get outside. And then you could create the games or whatever games they came up with. I mean, kickball was always a go-to because it was for everybody.
Right.
But I also love the fact that our physical education teachers back in Florida in elementary school, it was free play Friday more often than not, where they had 4 different stations set up. You went to where you wanted to go. You could go to all 4, but it was like a buffet. There's kickball over here. There was, the gymnasium opportunity over there. There was an obstacle course that you could run. There was jump ropes, different things. But it was like a day for an hour and whatever it was. It was just freedom. You're not in front of a book. You're not sitting down at a desk and a table. You got to breathe. I think the breathing was good physically. It was good mentally. It was good spiritually. That being gone, also see what my son had to navigate through. Kids aren't allowed to play. They're not allowed, but it's hard to play multiple sports. And I couldn't be more on board of kids playing multiple sports because it builds up different muscles. It gives them a different lens to see how another activity is played. But now, I mean, if you have time for football, you really don't have time for basketball. Maybe you'll get to baseball. If you're in baseball, you got no time for track, wrestling, or golf. It just really limits the opportunities. So not a big fan. Love PE. It hurt Maddie as well to not have a physical activity in some of the schools we went to in Florida. That was the first place we ran into. In Pennsylvania, as bad as the weather would get, they would find opportunity for just to get out and walk, whether she walked the gym or did something, some physical activity. They kept it in play, and then it was gone from all the places. And she needed the physical activity. So they don't have it at school. So then you get to do it like before school or after school, which elongates the day. And then they come home for homework, and that cycle starts. And as every parent will tell you, most school starts way too early. Maddie's finishing up her 3rd year now and deferred diploma. She's 21, so last year she could be in school, but we get her up at 5 o'clock to get her downstairs by 5:30, to get her at the bus stop at 6:15, to grab a 6:20 bus to start school at 7:15. Science tells you that's not the best time for the kids to be up and learning. They need more sleep. However, we rebuke it and we take it a different avenue. And then we wonder why the kids aren't learning as much. Well, they're tired early. I know Maddie's tired early. She's not wide awake. Who's wide awake at 7:30 other than I am now? So there's a lot of things out there. I don't want to be the person that just whines because just complaining without having a solution is whining. And I've always tried to be a guy that says, hey, have you thought about this? Could we do this? We haven't made any legway here, but we've shared our thoughts and opinions. And it's actually pretty cool. There are a couple different private schools around here. The kids don't go to school till 9:30 of them. They come home at 4:30. Mm-hmm. How good would that have been? How sweet would that have been? Because I'm going to tell you, to get Maddie up at 5 o'clock, that's early, brother.
Yeah.
That's just early in the morning. It's dark out.
Yeah. That also means they got to go to bed at night early, and that's not a kid thing. That's not a kid habit, although it's a healthy thing. But when you talk about middle school, high school, getting students, I have a nephew I keep an eye on pretty closely in the Midwest, and I preach to him getting sleep. He's an accomplished athlete, and I preach to him getting sleep. I've sent sleep studies to him. It means nothing when it comes 9:30 or 10 o'clock to him.
Kristen's brain didn't turn off till midnight as well. All the days she's going through high school, part of that's life. And part of that's, you're never going to get it all right. You're never going to figure it all out. So there's always an opportunity to call an audible or adapt, improvise, and overcome. And if you make a mistake, hopefully you'll learn from it. You honestly self-evaluate and you don't make it again. It's hard being a young boy now. There's no doubt with the distractions, the social media. They're hunting thumbs. They're hunting likes. They want to be part of. And if they're not part of that, maybe there's another group that's smaller. They can be part of that. If they don't fit in that group, there's another smaller group that they might fight to be a part of, where they finally feel like there's somewhere where it makes some kind of sense to them. We shared, and my challenge is always, I need to be my son's dad, not his coach. He's seen me coach players. And there's been a couple of times he'd tell me, Dad, I don't need a coach now. I need to be my father. The one thing I've always held on to, though, in the background is my challenge is to help a boy grow into being a man and helping a young man grow into be a leader, and to try and keep it simple in that aspect for him. My wife did the heavy lifting for a lot of the years I was gone, half the month. And we're watching him grow up his first semester at college. He's doing good things as far as we know. And that's all we got. He'll be home for Christmas. He'll meet us in New York City, then he'll come home, and we'll be able to take another look at it.
You've talked about leadership with guys for how long now?
Oh, probably at least 35, 36 years. And maybe the last couple of years I was actually playing. I use that term loosely because the last few years I didn't play a lot. I was a watcher, not so much a player. But it's been over 30. It's been over closing in on 40 years.
When did you start your email list and text ministry? Because you share as much about leadership as you do about the Lord in that.
I try and keep both of them in play. And sometimes the encouragement emails lead people to questions that opens the door for them to maybe look into Jesus and his life and the commitment that comes with that, and a faith-based relationship, and the value of the Bible, even the Old Testament and the New Testament, the stories that are told. There's real people, there's real happenings. The encouragement email, everybody needs some encouragement. There's no doubt. And I was fortunate, some really hard times in my life, low times in my life. There was somebody there that showed up, whether it was a pat on the back or a smack on the back of the head, or, I always tell people, pat on the back, smack on the butt, both are appropriate. Timing's everything. But I started as a text ministry back in 2008. The end of it, and I took it into 2009, and 2 months into the season 2009, I was fired. And it was basically 12 people plus myself that we'd get together twice a month. We'd pick a topic. I started off teaching it. We'd ask questions. We'd do some reading. We'd share some thoughts. And then I'd type up the highlights, the bullet points, or text them to them at the end, so they had some reference. So we did that for a while. Then when I got fired in 2009 in Colorado, I can remember being away, and it was a July 4th vacation, which I hadn't had like in 37 years, a July 4th vacation. And I got a phone call from one of our members, one of the 12. And she called me up and said, "Hey, how are you doing?" I was like, "Well, doing pretty good. It's July 4th and I'm vacationing in the Outer Banks." And I didn't realize that I could have been rubbing this in her face. She's like, "Well, I just want to let you know I'm calling you because I'm not doing as well." Yeah. I used to love our meetings. I needed our meetings. I needed to share. I needed to think. I needed to hear and listen. I loved the text. At the bottom of the text, Clint, you would always leave us with "Make a difference today. Love, Clint." She goes, "I just want to let you know that you're not making a difference in my life anymore, and I'm not so sure you love me." What's the saying? Mic drop. I was stunned. Yeah. And I just said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'll get back to you." And I can remember walking back in the place. My wife saw me. She goes, "What was that all about?" And I told her, and she goes, "Well, what are you going to do about it?"
Oh.
So for me, walking has always been therapeutic. Not working out, not running. When I'm working out, I'm working out. When I'm running, I'm running. When I walk, I can think and not fall down.
Yeah.
So I took a little walk and I said, "You know what? I just need to do this. I need to get back and find a way with those 12 to start with, put a little something together and send it out to them." So it started with 12. Over the years, it grew to way too many text messages that Carla would again look at me and go, "Really?" there's little programs you can set up where you can put like 100 names on there and send one text rather than 100 singular texts. I'm like, really? I had no clue. So over time, the text messaging number grew. Then I learned how to email, and actually, I learned how to text folders first.
Okay.
Copy and paste the folder name, but then it became emails. Now the number's over 7,000 that go out 6 days a week, and an email of encouragement or the devotional, and it's clinthurdle.com. It's man proof. I signed up for my own email on this site. It costs zero. It's free. It's easy. I can do it. Anybody can do it. clinthurdle.com. And you can choose whether you want some encouragement daily or whether you like a devotional daily or you want both. But we take Sundays off. I learned from Truett Cafe. It's a Sabbath. I'm taking Sundays off, and then we just keep them going. There are people that I read, things that I might write, people that I learn from, female, male, younger, older. I try and keep it fresh. So it's not all stale, male, and pale 65-year-old men that are in my posse or in my library. I've got a lot of wonderful women that contribute stuff. I've got a lot of younger guys. So it's forever evolving. And it keeps me fresh learning, because I don't want to be just learning from people like me, because that's really not learning.
Right.
I need to reach outside myself and stretch and grow. And I really believe God's given me, my daughter, Ashley, who's 38, she was presented to me for a reason. I had to stretch and grow to develop that relationship. With Maddie, I had to stretch and grow. And with Christian, who's now 19, I've had to stretch and grow. And that's usually when we're at our best, when we're stretching and growing and learning, at least for me.
I think Steve Foster got me following that pretty early on. So I've been one of the guys. I'm going to guess you were maybe a year or two into that. Help me out on this. Is it Brene or Bren Brown? How do you pronounce her first name?
You know what? I pronounce it Brene. I could be wrong. Bren Brown.
Okay. One of her recent things I read applies to what we're doing right here. Daring to have a voice in the arena. And when you do that, you're really signing up to have your butt kicked. And those are two of her things. We are daring to have a voice in the arena about our faith, leadership, about men. And by doing this, we're going to be criticized because we'll post. This will be easy for people to find the podcast. I'm sure we'll start perfect and get better, like, which is to say, we will not start perfect at all.
No.
But soon enough, we'll be talking about things that will put us in the crosshairs of the public, or we'll get criticized. I'm okay with that. I mean, gosh, Clint, you wouldn't know this. I was the first reporter for ESPN Baseball Tonight.
Wow.
Long ago. I was on TV in Indianapolis at age 19. I just finished my sophomore year at Ball State. And I did not like school, and I was fortunate enough to get an internship, and from an internship, part-time job. So in the public eye for a while, of course, the ego in me just loved that. But along with that comes a lot of other things. And I was unprepared, to say the least, as a very naive Midwestern kid, for the politics and the off-camera stuff that happens in that industry. It just whipped my butt. And I'm still today, even though I've been around the entertainment industry here in Hollywood for 25, 30 years, still today at times, I'm not easy to run into the fire. But I think that's some of what we're doing here. Interesting thing I want to get your take on. I wrote a book. It's always within arm's reach here in the office. Cracking the Man Code, about how you go from a guy that's just a guy to a guy who follows Jesus. And we wrote that 5 years ago, and I started planning to write it 10 years ago. And recently I was on a podcast, and we talked about biblical manhood. And the interest in it really surprised me. The metrics, the podcast, the excerpts that were then posted on Instagram, I was really, I mean, I was overwhelmed with surprise at just how popular, how many views, impressions, all of that. And it got me thinking, maybe this is something where we sit down and talk about biblical manhood, what we see in culture, and the quote from Brene about stepping into having a voice in the arena about men, leadership, and following Jesus. I was genuine. I don't get surprised much in that, but I was genuinely taken aback by the overwhelming, I'll say, positive response. But then again, I work in men's ministry and I'm around guys who are chasing after Jesus. But Clint, I would say there's an undercurrent in culture now of men 25 to 45 that have some aspect of success. And it doesn't matter whether they're a teacher, plumber, or an accountant, entrepreneur, it really doesn't matter. Some aspect of success where they're getting there and turning around and saying, is this all there is? I think I need to learn about this Jesus guy. And I think that had something to do with the success of the podcast that I was on, because we really went head first into, okay, what is biblical masculinity? And of course, the whole idea of this toxic masculinity was way overplayed, and it played right into the hands of mainstream media when it came out, and it allowed a lot of people with an axe to grind to go ahead and do that without response or with responsible retort to it. So, Clint, let's talk about manhood and biblical manhood for a little while. And I'm happy to talk about the book a little bit, but as you travel and you're around guys a lot, and a lot of guys look to you for cues on what manhood or masculinity is. So what are you seeing right now in culture?
I'm seeing a, and I'll say a division on men who are doing what they think other people want them to do, what they want to look like to be successful, versus inherently understanding who they are and what brings them joy and how they feel best to be put to service. You know, I read your book 5 years ago. We talked about it when it came out. I was in San Diego when I got my first copy. Read the book, still reference the book. I'm leading a group right now.
Yeah.
Vulnerability, I think, is the hottest topic going for men right now, because I think it's a topic, when you throw terms out for young men, vulnerability never came to the table for so many years. It just,
Right.
that wasn't one of the words we were going to choose. You know, masculinity, was it about stuff? Was it about a car? Was it about a title? Was it about my salary? Was it about the number of women that I entertained or dated? Was it about the dress attire that I wore? Was it about the crib or house that I lived in? There was so much materialism wrapped around masculinity for many, many years. You know, it was toxic. It was toxic. That was the goal, to prove you arrived. And then I think more often than not, once you get those things at some degree, you know, you get all, some people get all of them. Some people get 3 out of 10. Some people get 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10. But there comes a point in time when you get what you get, and then you're looking, that's it. So it's like with anything, you develop addiction. Okay, I need more of that. You know, the 3,000 square foot house made me feel pretty good for a while. If I get a 5,000 square foot house on the water, I'm gonna have arrived. And that SUV, no, I need better than that. But again, at the end of the day, it's a home and it's a car, and they are nice to have. They're blessings when you treat them as such, and they're all wonderful when you know that you're renting them. It took me a long time to get there. I didn't get there overnight. And all I've tried to do is give men an example. We talk about modeling the behavior you'd like to instill in others. And to know there's no stopwatch I'm putting on them when I do this. For some, it's going to pop quicker than others. Developing trust is first and foremost, to get a young man to buy into whatever you're doing or whatever you believe in, whether a team concept, themselves, the community you're in. There has to be trust, and you've got to earn trust today, probably more so than ever before. When you and I were kids, you got called in the principal's office. He was the principal. You respected the principal. You know, when I remember getting called in a manager's office back in the day in the late 1970s, nothing good happened when you got called in a manager's office. Two things happened. You either were in trouble or you got sent down. That was it. You never got called in to talk about your feelings or how are things going at home. It's not the way it was scripted.
Yeah.
You know, now through my course of managing, you know, I used to tell people I want my door to be open. And it's great to say you have an open door policy, but if nobody's coming in, it doesn't matter if your door is open or closed. They only will trust you. They'll come in when they trust you. If they don't trust you, they're not coming in. So you also got to learn to adapt. You can't call them in the office. You might have to have an offsite. One of the things I learned from Jimmy Leland, who learned it from another guy, was, you know, I used to walk the outfield after I threw my BP group and just talk to the players in the outfield. It was a little less, you know, dramatic. Or sometimes, you know, you'd ask them, hey, would you like to have lunch before we go to the park? And of course, the player's like, nobody wants to have lunch with the manager.
Oh, yeah.
You know, nobody wants to have breakfast with the manager. But I try and find a spot where we could have a conversation offsite, you know. And sometimes we would schedule things. Oh, we're going to go to Ann Arbor. We're going to watch the Michigan weight room. Hey, well, how many cars are we going to take? Okay, let me see if I can get two of the guys that I'd like to take a 45-minute car ride with in the car with me, and then just see where the topic goes in conversations. Much better. When things happen authentic, they happen organically, they're much better served. But I think it goes back to establishing a pattern and a relationship based on trust. And to earn trust, I believe transparency is tantamount, as is vulnerability. Would you rather hear a story of somebody that failed and then maybe found something good at the end, or the guy that just keeps winning all the awards? You know, he just, oh, I play, I win. I got a batting champ. You know, we all can, I think, relate authentically to failure and to fighting back and perseverance and resiliency. So earning trust, and it takes time, and it takes real time, face time. That was one of the biggest challenges. I had to find a way to manage my time. And I think that's another challenge for young people, that they're not equipped to do it. I'm still not good at it. You know, people say, well, you got to create balance in your life. You know what? I say you got to fight for balance every day you wake up. You know, I can put a day timer down in front of me. Yeah, that looks nice, but am I following it? So trust, number one. I've got to find a way to earn their trust. When you earn their trust, then they'll actually start to listen to you. You know, and then you may have a chance to coach them up. And then when you do get that chance, wherever it is, you got to be able to show up and have some skills. I think the third piece that goes into that, can they trust you? You know, can you make them better? But do you care about them? Do you truthfully care about them? Because when they know that they're more than just a middle infielder with a first step quickness and a little barrel to the bat, and and their baseball IQ is good, they're an average runner. If you only know the analytics or the profile, know where they come from, know where they live, know what they did in school. Do they like music? Do they have a dog? Do they like to hunt, fish? What's their wife's name? It's like putting a jigsaw puzzle together. And that's what I found has given me some opportunity to have some success in developing relationships. And the only reason I can say that now is because I still to this day have many players. I'm blessed. I have many players that reach out to me. They aren't players anymore. I'm not giving them hitting lessons anymore. We're not talking about anything to do with the game. We're talking about life. So that has been very encouraging for me, that I must have been hunting some good stuff along the way, because I still have a lot of players that reach out. You know, I've watched them date girlfriends to turn into wives. They have kids. They develop in their own nonprofit or some other type of functional LLC, that they're doing things and being of service. That's the reward.
Yeah.
That's the reward at the end of the day.
Yeah. I on my phone, under your name, I have those three. I can remember the first time you told them to me. I put them on my phone then, I think, and wrote them down. And I probably have a notebook here that has that in there. Well, Clint, we started oh gosh, 50 minutes ago. Uh, and we're going to try to keep this podcast to about an hour, anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour on a regular basis. So let's think about Christmas coming up. Let's share a thought about the Lord and our faith in the Lord. Um, my wife's big on Advent calendar. We count down, and uh, peace is this week in Advent. Our pastor at our church really had a beautiful sermon about peace, the Lord's peace in John 15. And I think I posted about this, and I'm getting more and more bold about posting about my faith. I guess because I care less and less about what other people think about that, or I'm a little more discerning about what I think about that. But this time of the year for me is not about perfection. I also think of how much joy there is and just the Christmas-like wonder in following Jesus. But I also, at this time of the year, I look around and see people that are hurting and the pain in our own family, the pain in my wife from just walking through life, no different from anybody else. But this time of the year, I'm more sensitive and alert to the pain that people experience just from day-to-day things, the good and the bad, the joy and the challenge of life. And I'm more sensitive to that, more alert to that, having walked through life. And I would have never been that way as a younger man at all. I was not. I was oblivious. Maybe God made me that way for a reason, but at times totally uncaring. But these days I look at Christmas and I think of, okay, um, maybe December 25th was not Jesus' exact birthday, but that's why we're celebrating. We're celebrating the birth of Christ, the birth of a living Savior who's alive, and the Holy Spirit's alive inside of me, inside of you, inside of anyone watching and listening this, should they choose to. So, Clint, when you think, those are some of my thoughts when I look at Christmas on any day, whether I'm sitting inside church or I'm out on the Southern California freeways, or I'm sitting here in my office trying to behave and doing ministry work. How about you? What's that like for you?
Well, it's evolved over time. I mean, I became a Christian at the age of 17. And as I've shared many times, I'm not proud of the fact, but I used Jesus as an ATM card for 23 years. Christmas was, when I was a kid, yeah, it was about presents, but I always knew the biblical meaning behind it. For unto us a child is born, our Savior, baby Jesus, in a manger, no room. Holy cow. What was Joseph thinking? How do you navigate those waters? How about Mary, the unbelievable faith? You know, I've walked through that story multiple times, but over the years it became more significant. The meaning became more real. Finding a way to serve others, you know, like picking the right gifts now is actually meaningful. It's not just stuff. My wife has gifts of giving gifts where she pays attention. Her awareness is off the charts. Carla, and that's rubbed off on me to some degree. I'm not in her. I'm not a black belt like her. Right? I'm down the list. However, just the overall awareness of who could use something, who needs what. Carla lost both her mom and dad last year in the fall. So last Christmas, the first Christmas without her mom and dad, and I've become aware that, you know, the holidays have more meaning and more hurt in some areas because of people not being at the table, less chairs at the table. Her mom and dad were always over here for Christmas dinner, for Thanksgiving dinner. And for me, it's, you know, the Advent does play. It plays. Maddie peels our Advent magnets off every day. There's a message involved every day that it's not a class, it's just a scripture, a thought we put in our pockets and try and walk through the day. But I'm also reading a female author that has walked me through the Advent season. This is the third year. Her name's Hannah Brencher, HannahBrencher. I post her stuff from time to time. Maybe one of the best writers. She electrocutes me, her lens, her vulnerability, the walking through the Bible. The Advent season, every day I look forward to reading the story that she shares. And basically today's story, and the one I'm holding on to more so than ever before, am I making room for Jesus? Am I making room for Jesus throughout my day? Am I making room for Jesus in my decisions? Do I only pray when I need something? Do I only pray when I'm confused? Is prayer my last form of defense, or should it just be the first thing I do? We prayed about the podcast, right? It was a week or 10 days. We both said we were going to. And you know, that's part of it, but also part of it, if it's just the right thing to do, I don't need to pray for 10 days. I just need to do it. I'm also learning that aspect of it, you know, because one of the things I think I've learned in my Christian Heisman move is, oh, let me get back to you with that, brother. Let me pray about it. Is it the right thing to do? Just do it. If it's the right thing to do, do it. I don't need to give you the Christian Heisman. Oh, let me pray. Let me pray about it. The podcast, I needed to pray. I needed to make sure I had room, along with other things. You know, if it's with my family, am I making room? I shared with my wife today. This is growth. it's so stunted and it's so minimal, but it's so real. There was a day I blew off my Bible study today. My morning Bible study at 9 o'clock. There's 90 coaches on it. I love it. I love them. I'm on it. I do it. And we had to go run some errands today. And I go, you know what? I'm going with you. But there was a day I had to put down both feet. I would have set up. I can't miss Bible study. You'll be okay, right?
Right.
You can do it by yourself, right? There'll be some big, young, strong guy at Home Depot that'll help you pack the car up, right? But I even mentioned to her jokingly, I said, I know God loves me no matter what, but I do think he loves me more when I'm with you, helping you, than when I'm holding on to my own selfish desire. So in the story, I'm making room. I want to make room. I want to continue to remind myself to make room. And I loved what you said, buddy. It's awareness. And I do believe that youth is wasted on the young. I've learned so much, you know, over the years, and especially since I rededicated my life to Christ around the age of 40. I went through male menopause. Story for another time. The last 20 plus years, almost 25 years, I could not have written the script. Right. In my wildest dreams, I could not have written this up. It's been amazing. It's all been easy. There's been disappointment. There's been some heartache, but I mean, you don't enjoy the view. You got to get to the mountain to enjoy the view, but you got to get in the valley to enjoy the view. So the awareness and just being cognizant of others around us, that what do they need this Christmas season? What don't they have that maybe I can help them with?
Yeah, my mentor in men's ministry, Pete McKenzie, has a saying about the valley. The valley provides perspective. Now, if you're hurting and you're in the valley, that might not help as you are hurting. But hang on to that. The valley provides perspective. That often means look around and see who your friends really are when you're hurting terribly. And look around and see where God is when you're hurting. He's right there with you. The Word is with you. Clint, that's an hour. That's enough. Two guys on two coasts. Two guys on two coasts. We'll do this again. We hardly talk about what you really do for a living or what I do for a living. We'll get to that later on. There's enough time for that. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Feedback. We want your feedback. He's really easy to find on social media. I am too. And ClintHurdle.com, anywhere you find podcasts, YouTube, all of social media, we're really easy to catch up with. Reach out to us, comment, share this with others. His email ministry, text ministry, easy to find. I am active on social media and consult a couple of other groups that are active on social media. I spend way too much time there, but at the same time, we do it in our way of trying to serve the Lord, and we're grateful for that. Clint, we're done. First one.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. I look forward to I like to say this. Let's lock arms and run errands for Jesus, brother.
All right, that's it. He's Clint. I'm Phil. We're two guys on two coasts. We'll talk to you next time.